cassava seed system is still developing in many countries. Therefore, what we are trying to do now is to lay the foundation for seed system development across cassava producing countries. So as I said, I would like to explain a little bit about the approach followed by Nigeria and what DRC is doing at the moment, with the hope of showing the private sector, the farmers, the opportunities that are there in the cassava value chain to make investments and use technologies and innovations that are available within the country and through that and other agencies or research institutions that are developing approaches and technologies. First, Cassava Compact. What we do basically is to transfer technologies, and we provide technical assistance to countries to be able to take on these technologies and develop the sector. And there are a number of technologies that will help countries to uptake and the private sector to make investments on them. Technologies to raise farm level productivity. There are a number of technologies, varieties, soil, fertilizer application, mechanization of production that also helps productivity increase. There are a number of them. We also support technical countries to take post-harvest processing technologies, and the private sector in particular, to make investment in processing of cassava. We know cassava is a very perishable commodity. Therefore, for farmers to make money from cassava, there should be processing to create the market for the farmers. And that means that creating market means that for processed products means that we are creating market for the seeds. So I'm going to show in the next slide the model that Basics developed and which Cassava Compact is taking from one country to the other. My colleagues in Basics, Professor Sonny, will still explain this. But let me explain a little bit how this works. There cannot be a sustainable seed system when you don't have improved varieties. That's the first thing. And this is what Slurry is known to have done quite well. I'll talk about that later on. Then there should be early generation seed production, and that would then have to go into the hands of seed growers, and from seed growers to the farmers. But the farmers who are going to grow the roots must have the market. The traditional market for cassava, gari, fufu, those markets are there, but are they sufficient to create additional market for the farmers to expand their farm area? No. Therefore, countries would need to look for opportunities to expand the market beyond the traditional food products. And I would say that Nigeria did that. They succeeded. It helped Nigeria to increase productivity and production, total production. And that's why Nigeria is now the largest producer of cassava in the world. And DRC Congo is doing exactly the same thing. So, like I said, I would allow my colleagues from Basics to explain this. But how is Cassava Compact helping countries to follow this model, or at least to test this model, is what I'm going to explain. So, we really need to give credit to Slurry. There are improved varieties in this country that demonstrate the successes that Slurry made in the early breeding period. And these varieties are there, but not all of those varieties are in the hands of the farmers. And it's the development of the seed system that is important, and that's the reason why we're having this meeting. So, the challenges are, first, the production of early generation seeds, and we do not have a lot of seed companies in cassava production. How can we change that, or how can we support that to happen? What is the major problem with early generation seed production for cassava? Multiplication. It's so difficult to quickly multiply cassava, going by the traditional methods that we know. And fortunately for us, there's this technology called semi-autotrophic hydroponics. You've got a flyer that explains it a little bit. I'll explain it later. And our colleague Mercy from IIT Ibadan and other colleagues from DRC, they are the ones who have been working on this technology for some time, and this technology is now being adopted in various countries. So what do? The SA technology allows scientists to, I would say, breed or multiply cassava either in the lab or in a greenhouse. Hundreds of thousands of planting materials that can be produced within the research institution or within the private sector premises. So this is important. It's a useful technology to rapidly move up the multiplication of cassava. So this technology was introduced to our colleagues, Slurry, in 2019, and we supported the station in Gala to also have solar power for them to continue, to use this technology. So what I'm saying here is that Slurry has the expertise to support the private sector with this technology. Next, one other thing we did, as I explained in the model, without market, seeds may not move. And so at the beginning of step 1, we did an analysis or audit of processing centers that exist, at least those that are medium-scale processing centers, to find out exactly what were the challenges that were not making them to process cassava or to function properly. That was one way of helping the processing centers to begin to process and then by route create markets for the seeds. So we did the audit and did some rehabilitation and supported those processing centers to establish what I would call outgrowers and help them with some planting materials of typical 7, so that the outgrowers would continue to produce the seeds and sell, to farmers who would sell roots to them. We had a lot of challenges during COVID-19. Many of us could not, mix and move around, but that was the period that colleagues at IITA continued to work on the SAH technology. And this approach that they developed allows the SAH plantlets to be produced in the open, under greenhouse, which was different from what we were doing at the beginning of that one, producing the plantlets in the laboratory. What are the advantages? Cassava seed production became efficient, and when I say seeds, please understand me that I'm talking about planting materials, in this case of cassava. And it's a lot easier to upscale, that is, for the private sector, if you want to begin to produce 1 million plantlets every year. You have one greenhouse. Next year, you want to increase to 2 million, you just need to add another greenhouse. And you continue to produce or increase your capacity. So that new approach of producing the SA plantlets, we have just finished sharing experiences with our Slurry scientists. And I am very grateful to the Deputy Minister. She was going somewhere, and then she decided to go to Slurry to see what was happening. And so we're happy you were there, madam, and we want to request for additional support to Slurry. You have started showing leadership. And so here we are, Slurry scientists using the SA technology in the laboratory, but then they still have the opportunity of doing the same using the greenhouse. And this is where I'm going. For the private sector, if you are not involved in cassava seed production, there's a big opportunity for you now to do that profitably. And what is in it for you? Business. And you don't have to make that whole lot of investment at the beginning. You just need to partner with Larry on a PPP arrangement, and you would begin to use this technology. Now, what I will do is to show you a video for 3 minutes how this is happening in DRC Congo as an evidence that it is actually possible for us to do that here in Sierra Leone. Okay. We're having some issues with the laptop. Maybe this will be played later on if it's not going to play before. But let me explain this. For the private sector, the role of that is to provide technical assistance to countries. For this particular technology, that Cassava Compact, Basics, and other colleagues working on Cassava, who are the experts on this technology, can come and support you for you to make investments on the SA technology and produce plantlets, sell to seed growers, and the seed growers will produce the cuttings and sell to farmers. So what we did in DRC was to work with one private sector entity. They made investment in the greenhouses, and the experts trained them, and now they are producing these plantlets and they are selling to farmers. It's the same thing that is happening in Nigeria. It's the same thing that is happening in Tanzania. And that is changing the landscape of seed production for cassava. Later on, if we have the chance, I would, maybe if I connect my computer, I can show this. The next thing, what should countries do to support the private sector, the institutions, and the stakeholders to move the cassava subsector forward? There are key things that must be done. One of them, varieties, improve varieties. We have them. Second, quantification methods, early generation seed production. This is one of the things that Larry is working on to support the seed sector. And there must be the private sector support, private sector to make investment. They need to have access to credit to be able to make such investments. And the private sector would also be the one to drive the processing node of the value chain. And we have someone here, Engineer Niji, who has made such investments in Nigeria. And with what he's doing, thousands of farmers are benefiting from the processing activities that he's doing. And as I said, so Engineer Niji, are you in? Engineer Niji? Oh, he's not here. Okay, we'll let you know when he's back. So the government of DRC, similar to what Nigeria did in the 90s, they are using the resources that they have in supporting the private sector to make investment in the seed system, processing, and now they have a policy. Let me explain how this policy works. The policy for the use of high-quality cassava flour. Nigeria decided years back that every wheat miller must put cassava in wheat, imported wheat, so that they can reduce the cost or the amount of money they spend importing wheat. Nigeria wanted to try 20%, 10%, but in DRC, they want to start with 3% high-quality cassava flour in bread, 5% high-quality cassava flour in pastries. And what they did was to change the standard for bread, the requirement for baking bread. Legally in DRC now, every bread baker is expected to buy flour that has minimum of 3% in the bag, cassava flour in the bag. What does that mean? It means that the flour millers themselves must put the high quality cassava flour. And how would that happen if there are no processing centers to produce high quality cassava flour? So the government is supporting the private sector to set up factories to produce the high quality cassava flour. And that Cassava Compact, IITA, and other institutions, we are providing the technical assistance for that to happen. Unfortunately, the video is not showing, but we'll find some time to show you the two videos, how the government of DRC is doing this. And within the same agroecology, once there is a processing center, there is a big seed production effort. SA plantlets being produced by the private sector, delivered around the vicinity of the processing centers or the companies. And those companies are also buying the SA plantlets for them to then give to the outgrower farmers. This is how it works in Nigeria. It is better now. I mean, the structure is better now than what Nigeria did at that time. But it's still essentially the same model that I believe can happen also in Sierra Leone. I'll stop here because the videos did not show. Maybe later we can talk about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So I think the final presentation is from Dr. Francis Nagayo. So